In this presentation, we're going to show you that the modern guitar is in fact the Kithara of Revelation chapter 15. It says, "Those that overcame the beast stood on the sea of glass." And what does the sea have? It has waves. And they had the Kithara. In Greek, the word Kithara is translated in English as harps. But if we say the Greek word, it's Kithara of God. And Kithara is where we get the name for the modern guitar. But we're going to see through the Bible, through the great musician David, that the modern guitar was actually foretold in the Bible. Now, in order for us to understand this, we first must understand the waves of the sea of the overcomers. And keep in mind, the 24 elders also have the Kithara. This is a replica of the instrument described by the Apostle John as a Kithara.
I'd like to introduce you to an unusual musical instrument. This is called the Kithara. It is the word where we get our word guitar. And it was a musical instrument very popular during the golden age of ancient Greece. This is a 9-string reproduction which was made by Anastasios Koumatsis in Thessaloniki, Greece. This is a modern instrument. It has 9 strings, which I have tuned, more or less, to a B minor scale.
Now, the modern instrument that we call a guitar, like this, has really only been around about 5 or 6 centuries. Now, obviously, the instrument we saw, the Kithara, is more of a harp. But we can actually find some remarkable information in the Bible that actually shows us that the guitar of our day is in fact the instrument given to the overcomers. Now let's remember, the overcomers, they stood on the sea of glass. Now what is it, the sea? The sea has waves. Now how can we see sound? Well, sound is like waves coming towards you, and the distance between the waves is a frequency. We know this by Hertz, who invented made us known the distance in sound between the waves in a frequency called a hertz. So this is about 100 years ago. We standardized a system of measuring frequency called hertz. Now, as we said, the modern instrument, this is only 500 or 600 years old. However, there were older instruments that weren't just like a harp, but they had a piece of wood behind the strings. Okay, they're given various names. One of the common names is a lute. So we do know from ancient Egypt and other ancient historical sources that an instrument that had a wood backing like this did exist in antiquity at the time of that instrument. So we know that happened. In the Cairo Museum, we found a lute, which you can see on the left, and on the right window is a psaltery. There's certain things that have not happened except for the last 100 years or so. And that is the ability to measure the wavelengths or frequency of sound. For example, that sound, as we hear it, is based on the number of frequencies or waves. Okay, this is something that we know as hertz. Okay, so for example, the amount of waves in this note is low. In this note, the amount of waves is higher. In this note, it's higher, etc. So that knowledge is only in the last 100 years whence the standardizing of these numbers or waves in this frequency gives us something called a hertz. However, we can actually find that the Bible predicted not only this instrument, but hertz, giving us the proper tuning of the instrument. Okay? And where do we find it? Who's the greatest musician? David. Now, this is an application that allows us to tune to hertz. And you can see I'm talking to you, and what it's doing is it's picking up the wavelength of my voice. Now, let's play the notes and see the frequency and the number of them. Okay, see that? 80. 108. 144. And it's a little flat. Tune it up. 192. So those are hertz. So you can see that the instrument, any guitar tuner, will allow you to tune to the proper frequency of that note. However, nearly all tuners are tuned to a number called 440. Now, the information and the numbers you just saw are based on a different number. It's it's right here. Hertz, this is the hertz, just like we had the numbers here. The hertz, you would tune your instruments 432 hertz. This is critical because the first thing you need to do in an orchestra is come to a standardized tuning. What is the note? What is the singular sound that every instrument tunes to, and then every instrument then tunes to itself to that note. And the notes that I'm playing to you are based on 432. Now, remember how I told you about David? Well, David actually gives us this information. Here, I'll put everything on the screen about the Kithara. So we're going to get to David. But Revelation 15:2, those overcomers of the beast stand on the sea of glass, waves, right? Just like I'm speaking to you in waves. And this is picking up the notes I'm speaking to you. Having Kithara, and it's where we get the modern name, Kithara, or guitar, of God. And they sing the song of Moses and the song of the Lamb. Now, the Kithara is also in the hands of the 24 elders in Revelation 5:8. Each Kithara, they have in one hand a Kithara, in the other hand a bowl. And they sing a new song. Well, we see the same thing with David, 1 Chronicles 16:5. Those with vessels, like bowls, they have vessels, they have psalteries. In the Hebrew, that's Nabel. And they have harps. Harps is kinnewar. Remember how there's 24 elders. Well, David has 24 of those that prophesy with the harp, kinnewar, or psaltery. Then he begins to place these priests in an order. And this is in 1 Chronicles 15. And there's Kohath, Merari, and Gershom. These are the sons of Aaron. And also sons of Kohath, additional ones are Elizaphan, Hebron, and Uzziel. Now, with each one of these priests, it says, and their brethren. Now, the number of brethren for Kohath is 120. Merari, 220. Gershom, 130. Elizaphan, 200. Hebron, 80. And Uzziel, 112. Now, if we take Kohath, which is 120, if we take Elizaphan, which is 200, and we take Uzziel, 112, we add those up, and it's 432. This is our note, 432, that we must tune by. See that? 432. So once we have that, then we can tune the rest of our instrument, the orchestra can tune their instruments, and the music can be in harmony and proper. It will sound properly. Now, the reason I'm proving to you that the modern guitar is in fact the proper instrument, as you can see here, we have a guitar. Now the notes that I'm playing, see, let's get this here on the screen. Okay, and I want you to notice this number right here. You can look at this number, but look at this number right here. 80. Okay, and here you can see Hebron, 80. Now some of these numbers aren't going to be precise, but they're going to be very close. Our next one, 216. And that is very close to our Merari, 220. Now guys, this is not coincidence. 144. Well, 144 we find in the Alamoth. You see, we have it written right here. Alamoth means virgins. So it lists certain players on the Alamoth. Let's see, we have their names just here. Okay? You see, there are certain numbers, and they had psalteries on the Alamoth. So these are, in fact, 144 hertz. We know this because in 1 Chronicles 25, verse 7, there's 24 priests, each have 12 brothers, 288. And there's 288. Let's get that on the screen so we can see it. 288, see that? So the number of people is actually the hertz in the instrument. Okay, so thus far we've done 80, 220, 144, and 192. And 192, it relates to, or it is very, very close to Elizaphan, 200. Okay? So, what we can find is that when we play various notes, they relate to hertz. Okay? So on a guitar, what we did is we played a E note, an A, a D, and a G. So we're showing you those notes are the very notes on a guitar. Isn't that amazing? So you can see Hebron and his brothers, 80. Well, that's an E note, and that's the low note on a guitar. You can see the next is A, Uzziel, 112. That's the next note, A. Then we have D, the Alamoth, the virgins, the harpers of Revelation 14, A. Or excuse me, they're D. That's a D there, sorry. And lastly, we have a G note. Elizaphan, 200, and that's a G. And additionally to that, we have certainly other notes, but these four notes, or these four frequencies, relate to notes that are four notes on a guitar. Now there's other ones as well. Kohath is 120. That's a note which is a B. Merari is an A. Gershom is a C. So these notes we can play, all of these. So Kohath is a B, so that's so there you could see 121. And guys, you only can achieve this by having 432 hertz. If you go to a different tuning, you're not going to have this accuracy of these notes. Okay, there, 216, and that's 220. And then we have a C, 128, and again, very close to 130. So these notes are the number of brethren of the priests. Now, if you don't actually have an instrument, you can still actually play these frequencies. This is something called a frequency generator. It's just an app, and you can play that frequency. So that's an 80. And that's 432. And if you're wondering the frequency of 144 hertz, so isn't that amazing? We can clearly see that the modern guitar is in fact the instrument of the 24 elders, of those that overcome. And we have the precise tuning. So as we played that tone, now we can tune. Okay, we can tune our instrument. And now once we're in tune, then you're probably wondering, well, Leland, now that you have all these numbers, these different notes, why don't you do a exercise of turning it into music? So you can hear. So you can hear that sound, okay? And we can play to that. See? Okay, and we have other notes. 144. Can you hear that? Okay. Now, as we go back to our notes, and you can see we had the priests, 1 Chronicles chapter 15, and we also see the Lamb on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000. And I heard the harpers, Kithardos and Kitharizo, were harping with their kitharas, and they sang a new song before the throne. And David appointed singers with vessels of song, psalteries. In Hebrew, this is a nabel. Harps, kinnewar, with cymbals. Now, within this chapter 15, verse 20 lists these priests on the Alamoth. Now, here we consider these notes, remember these priests were notes before, as a scale. You can see we're saying here, scales and notes. And so in verse 20, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And this would be the full major scale. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. 8 notes in a major scale. And verse 21, it lists 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can see them there with harps. So here with psalteries, here with harps on the Shemaiah. This, in modern language, we call a pentatonic scale, or 5 notes. But the first and the last note is the same. It's just an octave or 8-note difference. But that scale would be E, G, A, B, D, E. 6.
I'm sure by now many of you are wondering, what is this instrument here? Well, this is called a chapman stick, but I call it a psaltery, in the Greek psalterion. And what this is this is an instrument that's new. It has 12 strings, and it was really the sound, it was really the type of music I wanted to create many years ago when I couldn't find it in the guitar. So, this instrument has very low notes, has a low C, and very high notes, like a guitar. But you play this instrument differently. Instead of picking it and strumming it like you do a guitar, all you have to do is touch the strings like this. Because we have amplifiers and electric instruments, now we can create new instruments. Psalteria. And what we'll do is, in the last part of the video, guys, what I figured I'd do is just share some footage of places I've been where I've been reminded of this sea of glass. We'll play some of this instrument in the background and do some scripture verses.
So thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this most interesting study, this most interesting discovery of the Kithara, of the guitar, the harps. And this is part of a playlist on the House of David. And we have another video on building the tabernacle of David in these last days. And isn't that amazing that the scriptures gave us information for us in these last days to be in the proper tuning, to be in the proper frequency of heaven. So thank you for watching this. I hope you've enjoyed it, and God bless you.